Hey everyone, so it's finally happened. The Evan Revamp just came out today. Super excited. This is going to be my video, sort of covering the basics of how the Evan Revamp works and going over stuff that sort of confuses people. Generally, I think the fact that you have to combo so many different skills is a little daunting to a lot of people, so I'm going to try and cover it in a way that makes sense and goes over all the different mechanics so it makes it more understandable, because I know a lot of people were having troubles figuring out, like which skills do I use, blah blah blah. So I'll go over all that later. We'll do some damage testing in this video actually, which I've already sort of done myself, but just to, put it out there for people to see, make it easier to understand. To start off with, we'll look at the beginner skills. So we got Back to Nature, which just teleports you back to Evan's house in Genesis. And then Inherited Will, I think this got slightly nerfed. I think it used to be 10% boss damage, but I'm not sure. And then Evan's also got a Link skill, which goes up to level 3. I think Aron's Link skill also goes up to level 3, but I'm not sure, so don't quote me on that. Evan's Link is Rune Duration, so it's basically just buff duration that works for runes. Really useful for training, and that's about it. Doesn't really do much else. That's basically it for beginner skills. So getting into first job, we have Mana Burst 1, which I actually can't show you. Yeah, this is Mana Burst 4 right now. As you put points in the later Mana Bursts, Mana Burst 1 just automatically upgrades into the later ones. So like if I take this off, there we go, okay. Like I can't drag Mana Burst 4 onto a key. I have to put Mana Burst 1 on here, and then it turns into Mana Burst 4. But Mana Burst 1 is just your mobbing skill first job. Pretty self-explanatory. Teleport has basically not changed at all. It's still pretty much the same, goes the same distance. Still cannot jump and cast it. And the vertical range still goes right about there. So not the greatest, but it's teleport. Moving on, Magic Guard has changed a little bit. Instead of being a buff, it is now a toggle skill. So if I hit my key here, say I turn it off, and then on, off, on. It's very nice, so you don't have to worry about rebuffing that in case you were like concerned about dying or something. Dragon Soul just gives you a bit of defense and some speed. Magic Link gives you some more MP and is supposed to give you some magic attack. I'm not sure what the description is trying to say with plus 0x, but maybe it's just a glitch, who knows. And you have Dragon Spark, which is like a final attack. There's a 40% chance to do 100% damage as you're attacking. This does get upgraded later to be significantly better, so that basically is it for first job. Moving on to second job, this is where the revamp starts to get fun, in my opinion. And before we start going over these skills, well, sort of as we go over these skills, a main tenet, I think, of the Evan revamp is that there's 4 different types of skills with Evan now. So you have your Evan skills, which are just Mana Burst and stuff like Wind Circle. There's more skills like these later, but Mana Burst and these skills that Evan himself casts, as you can see here. So like Evan is casting the Wind Circle. That's why I'm calling it an Evan skill, even though it's not labeled as such. The second type of skill, which we see in Dragon Flash, is a Myrrh skill. So this is a skill that Myrrh does by himself. So I can tell him to go Dragon Flash over there, I can walk over here, use Mana Burst. It's completely independent. Myrrh skills and Evan skills are completely independent of each other. And then we have Return skills, which is really just one skill, but depending on when you use Return, it has different effects on the area around you. So if I'm using Dragon Flash, I tell Myrrh to go over and Dragon Flash, and then I hit Return. It calls Myrrh back to me immediately, and since he was using Dragon Flash, it procced Return Flash, which works the same way that Phantom Imprint did pre-revamp. It's basically just a debuff on any enemies near me when I use it, and it causes them to take 20% final damage. One thing to note about the return buffs, if I cast Dragon Flash and Mur's over there, I can return over here and any enemies in this area will be affected. It doesn't matter where Mur is, only the enemies around you will be affected by return. And then finally, the fourth type of skill is fusion skills. So this is basically the bread and butter of the Evan revamp. You can combine Mur skills with Evan skills to create fusion skills. So if I use Dragon Flash and he's going off over there, and then I use Wind Circle, it causes him to do Wind Flash, where he shoots out scythes of wind at nearby enemies. So that's basically like the highlight of the revamp, in my opinion, is that you can combine all of your skills with all of Mur's skills to cause these fusion skills, which are generally much better, and also really cool looking, in my opinion. But yeah, those are the four different types of skills. You have Evan skills, Mur skills, return skills, and fusion skills. And you'll see more of those as we go through the later advancements. Also, I don't know if I covered this, but Wind Circle, basically just a rush. And actually, it's very useful because the rush that Evan used to have, which I think was called Dragon Thrust, it didn't really work on any bosses, but so far, I've done a few dojo runs since the revamp, and this seems to work on every boss. So that's really nice. I'm glad that they upgraded the rush skill for Evans. Moving on, in second job, we have Booster. Pretty self-explanatory, not much has changed. And then we got Support Jump, which is awesome. We finally get a vertical jump, so our vertical mobility is no longer garbage. I'm super excited for this in particular, because I've been waiting for a while to have better vertical mobility on Evan. One thing to note is that when Mur is using a Mur skill, like if I have him use Dragon Flash over here, you cannot use the support jump. Mur can't be attacking in order to do the vertical jump. So you can either, just wait for him to finish, or you can return, and then you're free to up jump at will. But Mur has to not be attacking in order for you to be able to do that. Moving on, High Wisdom, just 40 int partners. Whenever Mur is using a Mur skill, like Dragon Flash. Evan's damage with Evan skills, like Mana Burst and Wind Circle, get 20% damage, basically. So, if I have him using Dragon Flash, you can see up here, sort of get a little buff, partners, and that just indicates that I'm getting the 20% damage. This skill also gives a passive 30% stance, which you can see right here. So that's nice. Moving on, Advanced Dragon Spark. So this is the upgraded version of Dragon Spark, which is now at a 100% proc rate and does 50% more damage, so much better. And then Spell Mastery, pretty standard, 50 Mastery, 15 crit rate, 10 magic attack, and if you use a wand, you get an extra 3% crit rate. And that's basically it for second job. Moving on to third job, we have the next level of Mana Burst, and then Thunder Circle, which is the new Evan skill for this job advancement. Just cast lightning around you. Then we get Dragon Dive, which is the new Mur skill. So Mur dives down in front and flaps his wings, deals damage to enemies around. And this also adds new fusion skills. So if we combine Dragon Dive with Thunder Circle, Mur will shoot out orbs of lightning, which travel along the ground and deal damage to anything they run into. They last for a pretty long time and bounce off the walls, but when they hit something, they disappear, so it's not like constant damage. But as you can see, there's a lot of orbs here, so it does do quite a bit of damage, and they last a very long time. So that's Thunder Dive, and then we have Return Dive, which is the next return skill. So if I have him use Dive here, and then I return, you can see I get a buff, which is just +1 attack speed. So this is basically decent speed infusion, but it actually works for party members as well. So if anyone's partying with you and you use this, they also get the +1 attack speed, which is pretty nice. And we have Thunder Flash, so we can actually combine Dragon Flash from second job with Thunder Circle in order to create Thunder Flash, which is just Mur flying in a pentagram, and then he deals damage to anyone within range of these 5 points. And then we have Magic Debris. So the way Magic Debris work is if you hit enemies with fusion skills like Thunder Dive, Thunder Flash, Wind Flash, there's a chance to create debris around those enemies. And then if you use this skill, right now there aren't any debris, so it tells me you can't do it. But when you use that skill and there are magic debris, it sort of causes them to fly off and damage nearby enemies. In the same way that Meso Explosion on Shadowers does. It's a very useful skill, although it does very little damage. So, you know, kind of need to be really funded to take major advantage, but it's definitely useful. So be sure to hit that whenever you can while you're attacking. I know it's a lot to take in with all these skills. I'm still trying to get used to it. Like, holy crap! I've never played a class where I had to actually use like 7 different or 8 different attacks constantly, and it's really like messing with my head right now. This is gonna take a while to get used to. But moving on, we have Elemental Decrease, which is basically the same skill as it used to be, although it got slightly nerfed. So instead of 50% final damage from the passive effect, it is now 30%. So it lost 20% final damage there. Critical magic, same as before, I think. 30% crit rate and 15% min crit. Magic resistance actually is now a passive, which is nice. Evans actually lost a lot of the active buffs that they had to keep up. I think we used to have like 9 or something. Now we only have 3 plus magic or plus Maple Warrior. So it's really nice. Much less buffing involved. But in addition to being passive, I think this skill also did not used to have status resistance associated with it. I think it used to just be elemental resistance and the magic defense. So the extra status resist is really nice there. And we got magic amplification, basically the same skill it used to be, but again, the final damage buff got nerfed from 50% to 30%. So while we used to have 100% final damage, we now have 60%. But again, you can use Return Flash to do an extra 20% final damage, like you could use Imprint in the past. And then Dragon Potential, which is just 20% ignore defense. So that's always nice to have. Finally, 4th job, we get Mana Burst 4, which is what you saw originally with Mana Burst 1. It does 8 hits total, 2 sets of 4. Each set of 4 does a different amount of damage, but I think the average is still like 310%, so it's more or less the same as Illusion used to be. And actually, it even has very similar hits per second as Illusion used to, which I'm going to do. I'll summon a dojo dummy here in a bit and sort of go over the hits per second of everything to give everyone that perspective on stuff. But Mana Burst is actually the only skill of Evans that is affected by attack speed. So I'll sort of go over how attack speed matters with Mana Burst and how much attack speed you need in order to max out your benefit. Then we have Earth Circle, next Evans skill, just a tower of rocks. Then we have Dragon Breath, the final Mer skill. So this is what Dragon Breath looks like by itself. That is not Dragon Breath. Just kidding. This is Dragon Breath. It's just a flamethrower shooting out in front. And then you can combine it with Wind Circle from 2nd job to create Wind Breath, which is a fire tornado. Very cool looking. And finally, with Dragon Breath, you can combine it with Earth Circle in order to create Earth Breath, which you can't really show the full effect of Earth Breath in this map. Maybe I'll just go over here for a second. And we'll wait for some mobs to spawn. Earth Breath basically shoots out a giant laser and kills everything in sight. So let's try and get the full effect. That is not the full effect. You sort of got it. You can see he like perches up on the rocks and starts shooting out his fire laser at everyone. And actually, this is a good chance. You see these little sparkling things? These are magic debris, and if I hit the magic debris button, they fly off and do damage to nearby enemies. I think you can do 15 at once, so definitely good for DPS. But yeah, that's Earth Breath. Definitely one of the more impressive fusion skills, especially for mobbing, because it has such a massive range. Then we have the Return skill for Dragon Breath. So cast Breath, and then Return. It leaves a little trail of fire around wherever you were standing. And this lasts for about 30 seconds and does 150% damage to anything standing in it, which is nice for mob coverage, I guess. And we have Earth Dive, which is probably the least used skill, at least for me. Like I've not found a use for this skill really. Maybe someone out there can enlighten me on this, but basically, you know, just dive and earth, and Myrrh sort of like smashes through the rocks. It doesn't seem that good, to be honest, compared to the fusion skills, but maybe I'm just missing something. Then we have Dark Fog, which actually got sort of buffed, sort of nerfed. Hits actually went up to 6 instead of the previous 1, although you could formerly increase that with like the hyper passive, which doesn't exist anymore. Has the additional 20% crit rate that only applies to Dark Fog, so that's not just like plus 20% crit rate for you, that just works with Dark Fog. And then the cooldown got raised from 20 seconds to 40 seconds, but while Dark Fog is on cooldown, your magic debris actually do 20% more damage, so that's nice. Then you have Blessing of Onyx, basically the same buff that it used to be. I think it gives a little bit more magic attack. Maple Warrior, exactly the same. Hero's Will, also exactly the same. Enhanced magic debris, so basically all this changes is the rate at which, like the chance of a magic debris appearing when you hit an enemy with a fusion skill, and also the damage that it does. I think it might also increase the limit on how many debris you can have at once. I'm not sure. I mean, actually, yeah, you can see it right there in the description. 25 instead of 15, I think it used to be. Yeah, so it goes up a bit, which is nice. Magic Mastery, pretty self-explanatory. Mastery goes up, magic attack plus 30, more min crit. Onyx Will, the description is a little bit busted here, but basically whenever Myrrh is using a Myrrh skill, like if I use Dragon Flash here and you watch my stance, you can see I get 70% additional stance while Myrrh is attacking, and I think it's actually just while partners, the little partner buff is active up here, which lasts a little bit longer than the skills in some case, but whenever that's active, you get the extra, the 70%, which puts you at 100%, so that's really nice. As long as you keep Myrrh actively attacking, you have max stance. The trade-off is that when Myrrh is attacking, you can't use vertical jump, so, you know, gotta sort of balance that, I guess. Dragon Fury, identical to what it used to be, 35% magic attack, as long as your MP is between 100% and 30%, which is generally pretty easy to stay between. It's a very generous range. And then High Dragon Potential, this is a new skill, it just gives you 20% more boss, so it's always nice. And then I'll cover the passives for the hyper skills first. So as we were going through, each Myrrh skill has a bit of a cooldown associated with it. I think the base cooldown is 8 seconds for every single one. Yeah, they're all 8 seconds cooldown. But each one of them has a passive hyper, which cuts the cooldown by 25%, so that lowers it to 6 seconds. And then if you have further cooldown reduction from like a hat or something, like I have 2 seconds here, that lowers it. You can only get to the minimum cooldown of 5 seconds. You can't go below a 5-second cooldown on any of these skills, or any skills in the game for that matter. But if you do get like minus 1 second of skill cooldown, that will benefit you slightly. I don't know if it's actually worth having, but I like to think it is, because I don't want to recube that hat. So I'm just kind of rolling with it. So I put 1 point in all of the cooldown reductions to make them all an even cooldown, and then I also put my last 2 points in the Howling Wind, which increases Wind Flash's blades. So I'll use Wind Flash here. As you can see, he's shooting out 4. Normally this would be 3, but because I have the point in the hyper, he does 1 extra. And then my other point was in Thunder Overload, which when you do Thunder Dive, it increases the number of orbs that gets produced. So that's kind of what I'm rolling with. The other ones, like this is number of enemies hit with Earth Breath, which would be good if you focused on mobbing, I guess. Wind Breath, I don't think Wind Breath is a very good skill, and I'll go over that in a little bit, but that's why I didn't put a point there. again, I just don't get Earth Dive. I don't find a use for it. And then Rolling Thunder. This is for Thunder Flash, which I don't really use generally, but other people might. It's pretty much up to you. I think the skill cooldown reductions are probably the best to get, but then from there you can pretty much pick anything. It just sort of depends on your playstyle. And then going over the active hypers. So Onyx Dragon did get changed a little bit. I think now he does 2 lines instead of 1 line, and he's sort of transparent now, which is nice. No longer obstructing the view. Heroic Memories got changed a bit. Instead of just a plus 5 mil damage cap, it is now plus 10% damage cap. So effectively, it's the same, because 10% of 50 mil is still 5 mil. So you're still going to 55 mil with this, but for classes that have like a 60 mil cap or something higher, this would actually increase it to 66 mil. It takes 10% of whatever your cap is and then adds that on top. So this sort of scales with classes that have a higher damage cap, which actually I think there's a change coming up after the Damien update, which increases the damage cap for a lot of classes, so that's why this change got made. And then finally we have Dragon Master, which is a really fun skill and much more useful than the old hyper. So you basically jump on Myrrh, and then as you hold down the skill key, you shoot a giant laser. And while you're doing this, while you're riding Myrrh, you're completely invincible. So you can tank. It's not even really tanking. You just don't get hit by anything. Seavel's tails don't kill you. If you're in Lotus Stage 1, the laser will not kill you. You can basically just fly through everything. It's really nice. It only lasts for 10 seconds and has a 4-minute cooldown, which I think is reasonable considering its complete invincibility with a fair amount of damage as well. So definitely a fun skill to mess with. Now I think would be a good time to go over the hits per second of some of these skills, because I did do a bit of testing on stream earlier, so I more or less know what these are all going to be, but I'll just go over them again. I'm just going to buff up here. Not really a reason to, but I will do it anyways. Okay, I'm going to spawn the dojo dummy over here. I can't spawn the dojo dummy. Okay, we're gonna go to a town then. Actually, I think you can just go in dojo. Okay. Should be able to summon him right here. Yeah. Okay. So we have our target dummy. Now I'll open up battle analysis. So I'm just going to use each fusion skill / Myrrh skill one time to show you the hits per usage of these skills, which you can then sort of, do the math to get to the hits per second. But basically none of the Myrrh skills or the fusion skills are affected by attack speed. The only thing that's affected by attack speed is mana burst, so these will always be constant. So I'm going to go ahead and start the analysis, and we'll start off with Thunder Dive. So this should be 42 hits. Yeah, Thunder Dive hit 42 times. And then next up, we will use Wind Flash. This should be 64. Yep. So as you can see, I already know what all these are going to be, and if I take off decent speed and fusion, it's still going to be the same. So I'll just do Wind Flash again. Still 64. Not affected by attack speed. Instead of sitting here and going through every single one, I'll just open up this handy dandy chart here. There we go. So as you can see, ignore the highlighted stuff at the bottom for now. These are the tests that I did on attack speed. This is the number of hits per usage of every single, well, at least all of these skills. Some of them, like Thunder Flash and Earth Dive, I wasn't really able to test well, because as you can see, the the hits are kind of wonky. I'm just going to close this for a second. So I'll use Thunder Flash here. You see only like 2 points of the 5 are hitting the dummy. I tried putting him up here, and it still wasn't really hitting anything. Like, I think the range is really small on these points, so it's not very easy to test, but that's why it's not listed. And then Earth Dive, again, kind of hard to test, but going back to the chart here. So we have Thunder Dive at 42 hits. These second listings are the duration of the skills. You can see these in the skill descriptions, but I just wrote them to the side so you can sort of have a quick reference. Breath. This is just Dragon Breath without using Wind or Earth in conjunction with it. This is Breath of Wind. It's less hits in a longer duration of time, which is why I think it's kind of bad. I think the main reason you would want to use Breath of Wind is because it does a bit more damage, and also if the enemies you're facing have less than 30% HP, it does substantially more damage. But as someone who caps without that extra damage, I don't think it's really necessary. Like, I'll go ahead and just show the analysis. So here's just Breath by itself. It's going to come out to about 40 hits. Yep, 40 hits. And then we'll do Wind Breath. Oop. What's happening? There we go. So there's Wind Breath. It'll be 32. 32 for Wind Breath. So that's why I don't think Wind Breath is very good. It does create the magic debris, which you can then use, but I just don't think it's worth it. Earth Breath actually, weirdly enough, has more hits per second than Wind Breath. So if you're only facing like the one target, like, I'll just go ahead and minimize that. Bust out Earth Breath. You can see kind of just focuses it all on this guy. I think Earth Breath is probably better in those situations. And then here we have Dive, which is just dive alone. So this with no additional functions. It's not very good. And then Mana Circle. So this first Mana Circle test, actually, you know, instead of going over these, I'm just gonna do it in game. So I'll start using Booster and Speed Infusion, and then we'll show the. Oh, that was not Speed Infusion. Okay. All right. So this first test will be with Booster and Speed Infusion. I'm only going to use Mana Burst, and then I'll go for about a minute, and we'll see how many hits it'll be. So start, and then as soon as I hit enter, begin. So as you can see, it just does like 2 layers of 4 hits over and over. In the end, the hits per second end up being about the same as Illusion if you have the max speed, which this is not the max speed, so this will be slightly worse, but I'm not sure how much worse. I don't remember what the value was for this test, but I think it was in the low 700s. We'll see in about 30 seconds. As far as attack speed buffs go, you don't really need that much to hit the maximum benefit for Mana Burst. If you have decent Speed Infusion already, you really only need either a green MPE potion or just to use the Dive Return, which gives you the 1 attack speed. With only one of those, you hit the maximum value, and I'll show like with one and then with both. But okay, there's a minute. Yeah, low 700s, about 736 hits. And then if we use, I'm going to go ahead and show it with Dive Return. So now I have the attack speed buff, and then I'll start the analysis again. And then now what we're going to see is it's going to be significantly faster. I think it'll be at the high 700s, maybe even low 800s with just this. Again, I don't remember the exact values, but it's kind of hard to be precise with battle analysis. You sort of just have to, you know, estimate more or less. But there definitely is a significant difference between using return dive and not using it. And then I'll show with return dive and with green MPE potion to show that it's no different. Once this goes through, got about 13 seconds left. I actually really do like the way this skill looks. I think it's much prettier than Illusion was. Coming up on the end. Done. Yeah, 808 times with dive, speed infusion, and booster. Now I'll go ahead and use... I'm going to rebuff booster while I do this. So I'll use the MPE potion, which is +1 weapon speed and also breaks the soft speed cap. And then I'm going to go recast dive return to get the speed buff from that, and then we'll do one more analysis of this. And this should be right around 808 again. It may be a little higher, a little lower, depending on how accurate I am with my finishing of the timer. But you only really need the one or the other to reach the maximum benefit. And if you don't want to get speed infusion, you could probably do it with just return dive and the MPE potion. That should be enough to reach the maximum value, considering decent speed infusion is also just +1 attack speed. There shouldn't be any difference there. So about 25 more seconds to go. Side note, while we're doing this, I am actually really happy that they fixed the weird positioning glitch with this damage skin. Like, the heads used to be way up here whenever the damage was down here. It was really annoying, but now it looks much better. Really happy they actually made an effort to change that. Oh, well, that's awkward. Ooh, you know what? Maybe it's... Okay. I think I might have been mistaken. Well, we're gonna redo that test. If you caught it there at the end, my attacks stopped. I think I might be hitting the maximum number of attacks at 808. And that's why I thought it was the same, and I just was dumb and not paying attention. That's definitely possible. So I'm going to redo this and possibly change my mind about everything I've said in the last 10 minutes. Here we go. Okay, return dive. Okay, I'm going to need to move a bit at some point so that it doesn't stop attacking. Probably around 30 seconds, I'll just inch forward a tiny bit. Try not to delay it too much because that could influence the results. Okay, I'm just gonna go now. There we go. Alright, so we should be good all the way through to the end now. So we'll see if it's still around 808. I think it might actually be higher, and I'm just dumb. Definitely a possibility. But I don't think the difference would be too large, because it was only 1 or 2 seconds at the end there that it stopped for, so we'll see how big of a difference that makes. Coming up on the end here, about 5 seconds. Okay. We got 840. Okay, so it actually does help a bit. But you do need to move, apparently, if you're doing a 1-minute testing period. So it seems like you can only stand still for 808 hits. If you stand still for longer than that, it'll just stop. So that is why my testing was being kind of incorrect earlier. So ignore what I said for the last 5 minutes. The attack speed does actually help. That makes me wonder if having one more attack speed would even help, but I'm not going to look into that too much. Alright, so I'll keep that maximized over here for a second, and then I'm going to open this back up. I'm going to change this to 840. Okay. So my mistake with that stuff was being a little careless with the testing, but now we know. Yeah, there is an improvement. Okay, moving on. Dragon Rider, or Dragon Master rather. I tested this a bit. It's just the hyper skill, like so. This did about 175 hits in 10 seconds. It lasts 10 seconds, and I was only able to get 175 hits off. So, not terrible, but definitely not something you would want to be using for the DPS. Its main use would definitely be the invincibility. So, yep, that's basically it. None of the Mer skills are affected by attack speed at all. Mana Circle does scale with attack speed. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, there was a post on Orange Mushroom that said that KMS like changed Mana Circle to fix a glitch where attack speed affected it, as if attack speed was not intended to affect it. So I don't know if we'll be getting that, or if we're just going to have a version affected by attack speed forever. But yeah, attack speed does help with Mana Circle. In fact, getting +1 attack speed might even be beneficial. How much attack speed do we have? Hang on. So, staff, slow. I think that's slow 7. Booster +2, we got 5. Is there another speed buff? We might be significantly away from the hard cap. Yeah. Well. Oh well. I'm probably not going to change my inner or anything for that. But, there you go. Attack speed is beneficial for Mana Circle and nothing else. So if you feel so inclined, go for it. And that's pretty much it. I'll do some killing of mobs out here just to showcase the skills. Let's go to deck 1 because that's where I train. Close that. Also, weird thing to note, Lotus robots have started spawning around Black Heaven. I don't know if that was intentional or if that's just a weird thing that happened. Okay, I'm gonna return the flame up here, so that takes care of that. And we'll, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Whatever. Okay, so we got the wind scythes going on. Got Breath of Earth. That's not Earth. Just kidding. Got vertical jump. Thank God. Breath of Earth. It's glorious. Kills everything. Magic debris. Kill everything. You know, pretty good mobbing, obviously. Dark Fog with its additional lines of damage. I think Evan's going to be very good at mobbing once you get proficient with using these skills. Obviously, I am not quite there, but you know, one day maybe we'll be good at it. That's the hope, anyways. But yeah, definitely a very fun revamp. I'm super excited to, you know, do more testing with everything. That's also not what I wanted. I really need to get good at doing this. Okay, do that. Yeah. Yep. Wind sights. Do some mobbing. Earth breath. Yeah. That's probably like the general pattern I follow. That's basically it for my coverage of the revamp. Hopefully that helped anyone with any confusion they had over the skills or how they worked, or like what to use basically. I'll open up the hits per second thing again here as I close out. It should be noted that this is not, you know, like DPS. This is just number of attacks in a set period of time. So this is really relevant when you have high damage and you're already capping. Obviously Wind Flash is pretty weak as a skill. I think it only has like 180% damage after the passive increases. Let me take that back off for a second. Something like that. It starts with 55 and then you get 30 here to give it 85, and then you get 130 there. It's slightly over 200%. So not too bad, but definitely not on the higher end of these skills. Like, as you can see here, some of the passive increases are pretty ridiculous, especially for Thunder Dive. Thunder Dive is really strong. Like, it starts with 135, and then it goes up to, what's that? 135 plus 260, it's like 395, almost 400% damage, and it's like the third most efficient hits per second skill. So that's really, really good. Definitely one of the skills that I use the most in New Dojo, which I'll put out a video of New Dojo when I get better, because right now I'm struggling again to learn all of the skills and whatnot. It's a hassle. But yeah, hopefully that helped clear up anyone's confusions with the revamp. I'm really excited, and I'll be putting out some more videos soon of bossing and whatnot. If you guys have any more questions about specific skills or combos or anything, feel free to comment down below, and I will try to answer them as best I can. If I don't know the answer, I'll try to look for the answer, but you know, don't know how successful I'll be depending on the question. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.